do. And we go into the ban phase. EDG opting to ban the Renekton, which I kind of find hilarious considering how well they dealt with it, but clearly not wanting to deal with it. And then we actually see Yuumi banned, and EDG changed their first pick. They're so confident in their 2v2. They're like, look, give us the Lucian Nami. We will dominate you. This does mean, however, though, LNG, they pick up that Sejuani for Tarzan or Ornn. Most likely Tarzan, though. And they often like to pair that with melee solo laners in both mid and top.
Yeah, I just wonder, you know, from here, what do EDG go with? Do we see more confidence coming out of this one? And on LNG's side, right, like I do want to say, we have some picks to look out for the likes of Doinb, right? The solo queue styles, the Rumbles, the Lee Sins, the Aurelias, the Pantheons, the Nocturnes. Obviously, Nocturne banned away. But we'll see if LNG want to opt into something crazy into this second game itself. It is the Nami locked in for EDG, and we'll see what their last pick is for the first phase. You
could take Trundle here if you're confident Tarzan's going in the jungle, or even if you want to prevent it going in the jungle, you could take the Trundle here. They instead go for the Wukong, so still really strong pick on the patch, pretty aggressive. But right now, we had that discussion just before the game was starting. Do LNG lean into the scaling bot lane? And now we've had the complete flip. So now EDG are the ones who have the early pressure, the champions that spike soon and that want to snowball, right? Wukong, Lucian, Nami, these are champions that function best when they're ahead, and LNG have a bit more of the scaling picks. They're going to undoubtedly lock that Lulu in, and now we go in the second rotation. With the Sejuani, if they are going to opt into those melee solo laners, you probably want to ban away things from Scout that do good at dealing with them. You know, I mean, maybe you just get rid of the Sylas outright, but you do have priority on 4 to pick it for yourselves if you want.
Yeah, you do. I do want to go back to that point in the bottom lane, though, and especially the Lucian Nami pickup for Viper Meiko. We've even had this conversation about the Lucians. It's about mechanical execution, especially in the later fights, how you pick apart those fights. And the likes of Viper can do just that, right? And I think it is that confidence pick going in game 2 off of the Zeri game in game 1, giving that over to LNG and saying, hands diff us, make us work for this one. It's so important to keep an eye on that bottom lane, even if we're putting such focus on the mid lane, the jungle matchup. And now into the second phase, we get the solo lane focus, at least for the bans. We have the Azir banned by LNG and the Gnar banned by EDG.
Yeah, so trimming what Ola can pick in this situation, especially as a blind, in case LNG want to take Gnar on 4 and then leave counter pick for Doinb. Azir comes out as a ban away from Scout. No surprises there. And then the Kennen denied from Flandre as well. Often someone that likes to lean on those AP top laners. We'll see what EDG's ban is last. If they want to target Doinb a bit more, they could also look towards Ola and just sort of thin out his pool. Essentially, at this point, LNG have a bit of an advantage when it comes to these later picks on the fact that they can give themselves counter pick. We just to see who they look to prioritize that for when we go into the next phase. And it is actually a Lissandra ban from EDG, so it makes me think maybe Scout wants to bring out the Ahri. Makes a lot of sense. We often see Lissandra picked into that. And it looks like Doinb might go for the Sylas himself. So denial and also pairing with the Sejuani is so... I mean, we just saw how good it is, right?
We're just going to see LNG say, all right, I saw you in game number 1. I'll take that. You know, going shopping. They gave us the list already.
Yeah, literally copying the homework here. Like, they like their draft. Akali, something we've seen extensively picked into Sylas, being able to match. Looks like EDG might look to prioritize here. And then let's have to see what Flandre will end up blinding in this situation.
I will say, though, I feel like this is a bit of a bait from EDG, right? They were in the position to grab this area again if they wanted to, but they opted into the Lucian Nami. And again, going back to that confidence point for EDG. Also, something else is, you know, the Ornn being on the table here and maybe available for the top lane mashup and especially for the setup of EDG.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the Ornn here because you've just given Sylas an Ornn, but he has AP, so he'll do more damage. So I'm not the biggest fan of that ultimately. And it looks like LNG do want an AD top laner. Things like Gwen aren't really that appealing because you already have an AP jungle in mid, and obviously Zeri does a lot of AP damage as well. So they'll go for the Camille here. Something that can do pretty well in team fights because you have the easy ability to get on top of targets, stack up the Sejuani passive. Lulu can buff you up as well, but also like the Hextech ultimatum suffocating for picks like Lucian, Ahri, and Wukong. I'm gonna be real, I like LNG's draft more here than EDG's. They kind of just copied what EDG took. But like top lane's a fine matchup. You're gonna outscale there. Obviously, the early pressure is afforded to the Wukong, but, you know, it's going to be very difficult for JJ to make plays around the top side of the map with the double melee plus Sejuani. And bot lane's my only cause of concern, because I don't dislike the bot lane matchup for LNG, but it's Viper, Meiko, and Lucian Nami. That's all I'm saying.
That's all you gotta say, TBH. I mean, it's actually crazy. But I do want to hone in on LNG's pick here, the change from EDG's draft in game number 1, the Camille, right? You were talking about the late game team fighting, but as well as you have the option to play those side lanes, right? And you're going to force EDG's hand to try to answer those. So it's really about which option do we see LNG kind of dive into.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing, is just looking at what they can lean into on that front. I feel like, though, you know, we've had a complete flip, Mazel. We came into the game 1, like, LNG have to win lane, win game. Now EDG, I feel like emphasis is on them. I'm confident in them. I'm going to be real.
Okay,
like, as much as I've said I favor the LNG draft, I think EDG have the capability. But should we start to see those mistakes coming out? Should we start to see some of those issues arise? It's going to be a problem quickly.
It is indeed. EDG up 1-0 in this best of 5. A ticket to either face JDG or Top Esports, loser of that series, in the next round of the summer 2022 playoffs here in the LPL. Loser goes to the losers bracket of the regional qualifiers. And as we hit the rift for the second time, Aux, I know you were liking LNG's comp better than the game number 1. They have some of that stability, but the confidence oozing out of EDG at this point. They want to go up to match point. They want to make it a 2-0 series.
Yeah, look, I like the LNG draft, but EDG have 5 world champions for a reason, so we'll see how it ends up playing out.
There's some on LNG, all right? You can't throw some, all right? I know there's 5 on EDG, but you got a couple on LNG, okay?
It's 1, right? 5-to-1 ratio.
Okay, you know what? 5-to-1. But in the end, when 5, you know, you times 5 by 1, it's still 5. So in all actuality, I don't know how the math. I was trying to make it work.
Quick math. From
I was told never to do math on stream, but there's a reason for it. But in all actuality, it is looking
Mazel,
at that
you
prowess.
were right. 5 times 1 is 5. So
it is.
Don't worry.
And so, you know, Doinb is a 1 man, but when he times it by 5, he's 5. So there you go. But right, it is that prowess, the standard for EDG, the disappointment that would be if their season ends. And to try to come back from the lower bracket, obviously gigantic, but in all actuality, right, it is that step up to the moment. It is disappointment from their series against Top Esports.
Absolutely. I feel like, you know, EDG in the current form, I've seen people playing, this is their world championship form. This is EDG are back. And you got to remember, they lost against WE 3-2 last summer, and then went on to win the split and win Worlds. So them being knocked down in the losers bracket doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to make their way back up, but it's about maintaining that form, learning from the Top Esports series, and coming back strong. Now, would you see LvMao and Light doing a pretty good job, level 1, level 2 on the Lulu and the Zeri? This is expected. Lucian Nami kind of needs level 3 to take over, but just got to be watching out who finds the advantage. And now Scout a little bit overextended here, and only level 2.
Level 3 for Tarzan. They'll try to find Scout early on and get Doinb a lead. Scout gets out. Nice little shuriken flip there. Is he under tower far enough? And the damage not enough for LNG. Doinb going right back in on Scout to get some more damage done. And Scout burns his flash.
Yeah, did you see? Because Tarzan had his W wind up, and he was good. He's actually mind gamed him, because I don't think Tarzan was going to flash, but Scout had to flash to respond to make sure he doesn't get bursted.
This is a little bit rough. Light, it takes so much damage to start it off. And now Viper flashes forward because he's got the angle. And World Championship abound. That is first blood for EDG. LvMao, he will have to flash over this wall. Almost dies anyways.
And that is so rough. 4 summoners burn from LNG, and they still end up giving a kill over the Viper. Yes, a lot is burned by EDG, but a great gank opportunity. And it's just worth so much more than what we saw in the mid lane. But now Flandre, low health in the tower. This could be a dive.
Tarzan being proactive, got the mid lane gank, didn't work out. Got the flash from Scout. Now he's in top lane.
Moving.
We'll see if Doinb can get up here fast enough to make this dive happen. This would be a nice counter punch from LNG in the early game, as all it takes a little bit of damage back. But Flandre, he's going to try for the outplay here. I don't know if there's much that he can do, and he just goes down. Even after the triple knock of Tarzan, you're in some trouble. He has to flash.
Yeah, after shot coming in clutch there, and then flashes out, so he doesn't take another tower hit. Flandre did everything he could, right? He got a triple knockup. I can't fault him for that. It's one of these situations where the bad early trades leads to that window, leads to that opportunity. And here, JJ, fantastic angle. The confidence from LNG's bot lane because of the ward. They want to pressure the matchup in the early levels before level 3, but they just get completely routed here. Viper even flashing early because he knows light is going to flash and just able to clean it up with the autos.
And LvMao just instantly calls, all right, sorry about your light. I'm going to try to walk towards the river. Like, as soon as Viper flashed forward, he's like, all right, bye. We ain't scaling just yet. And it is a great pickup for EDG. Love that we saw the response from LNG, but you got to continue to look at this bottom lane. You got to continue to look at the Lucian Nami and see, next steps for EDG to continue to press a bit of an advantage.
Yeah, I think, they can keep trying to make plays around this bot lane if they find the windows now that the summoners are down. But also, once Viper and Meiko get to those one-item spikes, those are the big moments of the game for this Lucian Army. But here, it's so hard for Light and LvMao to trade. They actually went barrier heal. So one of the problems with going exhaust into this matchup is because Lucian takes cleanse. You exhaust him, he just cleanses it instantly. But have the extra survivability. Your Scout could be in trouble.
Scout dodging out through the shroud, though, and he's just expertly walking through here. Love the vision toggle there as well. And Scout, he's just too difficult to kill on the Akali. There's a lot of that outplay potential in that mid lane, and JJ is hovering him as well. Will take that extra tower shot there, but it is volatility in the top side, in the mid lane, all over the place as LNG look to collapse on top.
And I love that LNG go for play mid. They don't get the kill, but they pressure Scout so he can't move, and then they rotate up to top.
Doinb got 6 first. Yeah, he has perfect execution. He had it before Scout even hit 6, and there you go. It's right out the other end. He's even stutter stepping to take that extra tower shot. And Allah will go in to slam home the kill, takes that extra tower shot himself. Now Scout maybe looking for it. He has the perfect execution, and he's going to buy a little bit of time. But that minion wave is far more juicy than dying to LNG.
And we're not seeing the plays bot, but we are seeing how big the mid difference can be. We even saw Scout talking about this in the interview before he came back from the break, how they're going to try and stop Doinb from roaming. But LNG, they get the advantage mid. They move up towards top. Ala has the lane set up in this matchup, and they just take the kills on the tower. The fact they get them both here is devastating for EDG. It's so well played. Ale takes aggro first because he has the Hextech ultimatum, and then he ults to reset aggro. Then Doinb takes aggro. He has the Akali ultimate, perfect execution to get to the edge of tower range. Then he drops off the aggro, and then Ale just grabs it with the shield to take the last hit. It is perfect juggling to make that work, and LNG get rewarded massively for it.
And also, just heads up to Ala with that hook shot, denying the big knockup from Flandre at the last second. You even saw the animation on the ground, but it didn't go through because of the hook shot timing. So really, really good stuff for LNG to kind of pick that one apart. But again, Scout waiting patiently on the side, was waiting to try to capitalize on it. I think it's heads up play from LNG that is working out in their favor here. Not going to stop Meiko there on the back, though. We'll be getting that ward on bottom lane. But I think that is a big difference in this game comparatively to that first game. We had so much focus around the mid lane, around the bottom lane in that first game, where now we have a bit of a different, more volatile matchup, I feel like, in the top side, where it's not holistically following. You need to be involved in team fights. You need to find these flanks. You need to get these big Meganar ultis or slicing maelstroms. This time around, it's a lot more of that give and take. Flandre having those team fight setups, but Ala really having a lot of breadth to move in his own way, having the side lane potential, having the team fight potential, the Hextech ultimatums, a lot of the catch-out tools.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the fact that we've seen Camille kind of move out of meta has kind of made us forget how disgusting this champion is when she's ahead. The fact that her second Q just does so much true damage to shred through Flandre. She's a problem in the sideways, but also we compare it to Fiora. Fiora is another great side lane champion who kind of struggles sometimes to team fight, but the Camille is so good in those 5v5s as well. We see LNG, knowing they have the strength in their solo lanes, go for this Herald. And LNG do what they can to try and mitigate the pressure. They'll pick up this Gromp, but JJ looks like he wants to contest.
Lightning Crash from Light will get some damage back. Viper and Meiko came over the wall just to make sure at least that they could pressure that one. First Dragon is on the table here, and EDG might go for it, as we saw the potential top lane focus from LNG. But now Tarzan's on his way back down here, and I think JJ realizes the timing not exactly right to go for that Dragon early.
Yeah, and it's actually really rough because they try and go for an invade so JJ can get some camps. And because they find LNG on the Gromp, it means they don't get any plates, they don't get the dragon, they get nothing from this play, and now Tarzan is here, and there's no window to make something happen. Although, that being said, mid-prio has been achieved. Looks like EDG want to try something, but LNG are like, nope. And this is the difference. LNG have the comp, where if they don't see it happening, they can just back away and go, now we're good. We can lean into the late game. We're fine.
And it's about that reservation, right? Playing to that win condition, not getting caught in some of those overextended fights or getting caught in position where you don't necessarily need to fight. And I think obviously with bot lane having such focus in the late game in terms of this meta, but also who we have on the table here, Light and Viper, it is so important to kind of keep a side eye down here and see if Viper will get the upper hand in the 2v2. If Meiko can find a big bubble, if that burst damage, that first strike build for Viper comes to a head.
We are seeing the pressure, right? Plates being taken, and in the isolated 2v2, this is kind of why I was a bit concerned. The difference between Viper Meiko having the Lucian Nami, you can see how much they're doing to try and add pressure here, but not all there. He does have flash and he does have hookshot. He should be able to get away from this, but we'll see what EDG do.
They're buying so much time here. JJ's just waiting for the perfect opportunity, the perfect step up from Alla to go up and end his life. We'll see if JJ actually really wants to take this one as Flandre's trying to bait him into the wall. But again, you have so many tools to get out of a fight like this for Alla. It's going to need a perfect execution, not the Akali from EDG, and they decide to back out of that one. But that is also something I want to focus on here for Alla, right? We've seen such growth from this guy. You know, I was talking about the quotes from him saying, like, you haven't seen nothing yet. I'm going to make it big. I'm going to try to make something happen here in the top side. And he was who stepped into the shoes of Flandre as Flandre left LNG.
Yeah, and I mean, he's done really well, but this year wasn't a great one for Ole. Like, he even got subbed out earlier this split because he was underperforming. But this playoffs form, the success of LNG, a big part of it has been Ole, and didn't give a window over to EDG, right? You saw EDG waiting for him to use the hook shot in. Patience comes through, he waits for his team, allows him to move up and show him patience. That I'm real. A lot of LPL tops don't have patience. Yeah. I think you all know who I'm talking about. There's a couple who might go by the names of the Shy and Bin, but Ole
just gonna throw straight under the bus.
I'm gonna say it right. Fantastic players, but maybe not the most patient.
Oh, I appreciate you so much. Hey, just gotta tell them how it is. Now we do have Rift Herald for Tarzan and a mid lane gank coming through here. We'll see if Scout can navigate this one. Perfect execution there for Doinb and the Glacial Prison for Tarzan. As they do not get Scout again. This is like third, fourth gank that they haven't really been able to punish Scout that heavily, except for just the flash coming out earlier. Alla getting some decent damage under tower. Does have the hook shot. Here comes the Ornn horn to back it up. There's the flash out from Alla.
Yeah, you can see Alla now is trying to do the thing where you just ignore the Ornn and pressure the tower, but because we see JJ move in, it causes some issues. I was just thinking this is a bit of trade in the bot lane. Ult's coming through.
Ult's everywhere, yeah. Now Tarzan visiting topside. That's the Hextech ultimatum. JJ is here. He gets into the fight, but Glacial Prison comes through as well. Knockups, no. Alla goes down first, and Tarzan not enough to make the difference in the 2v2.
Such fantastic play from JJ. Not only does he use his W to dodge the ult from Sejuani, but his clone ends up blocking it, and so Flandre doesn't get hit either. The ult from Sejuani doesn't come through, and by the time the passive is stacked up, Arla is already dead. So really good play there. Now throwing the Herald down, they could just
JJ's not staying. JJ's just leaving. He just left Flandre.
JJ!
Why did you just leave Flandre like that? He was there the whole... Like, Tarzan was literally pushing up into Flandre. Okay, I see you, LNG.
I mean, I know Doinb was coming, and I'm sure everyone's like, look, Doinb was coming, he needed to get out. But man, that just feels rough.
You left your soldier.
Like, I don't know, man. They maybe could have killed Tarzan and got the Herald. That would have probably given over 2 kills. I actually think that might have actually been more worth than what happened now. But either way, JJ just leaves a man to die.
Just left him out in the dirt. We'll see the Ornn horn used by Doinb just try to get this tower, but this pesky tower don't want to go down. And Tarzan will end up finishing his back. I was wondering if he was going to try to stop it, but the plates are up for another 20 seconds here. We'll see if they can get that last one, but we got to look at the replay of that very extended fight in the top side.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the initial thing I want to highlight is the fact that Arla is already half HP, which is why they have the confidence to go for this play. But then also, just how it pans out. JJ reaches there first. And again, something that I mentioned before was the fact that his clone blocks the bowler so it doesn't hit Flandre either. The ult is just wasted in there. Passive stacked, but Ale is dead. Tarzan has to back away. So really well played there. And I got to say, despite the fact LNG are ahead and finding these positive plays, Scout has been ganked 3 times, hasn't died once. And they find that 2v2 top, despite the fact Ale is mega ahead. EDG are making this hard for LNG, making them work for it.
And we got to hone in on the kind of win conditions we set out in the draft for both these teams and talk about that stability that LNG were drafting and some of the execution that's going to be needed from EDG as we get further into the game. But I got to check back in on that with Scout on the Akali, with some of those scaling options from Flandre on the Ornn. It does have an upside for EDG. And speaking of upside, a couple ultis burned in the bottom lane for both sides as we're getting a fight over the Dragon Pit here.
Yeah, with light chunk, Tarzan as well. Is that enough? Matt, that is...
Wow.
Like, this is the thing. LNG have this early game team. They really wanted that Dragon, but the chunk from Viper, sorry, is enough. That being said, we do see Ale answer back on the top side, picking up that first tower for himself. So still, I would say a positive play for LNG, but it feels like every time EDG are answering back, they're getting something. They're making LNG's lead not as big as it could be potentially.
And that's where you got to start looking at the executions and how LNG, continue to build off of what they've had already. We will get a pause. Hopefully that gets resolved very quickly as, pauses in best of fives. Never fun. I promise I'm pressing my button to try to get it going. But in all actuality, right, the position that we're in definitely feels favorable for LNG into a second game where in game number 1, EDG destroyed them. But you still have those memories. You still have the hinkling of domination that EDG has shown us in the past. The execution that these 5 world champions will have.
That's why they're such a scary team. It's like if EDG get ahead, I feel like the game is just over. Against a lot of teams, at least. We definitely saw like top esports do a good job of mitigating that in game 5. But for the most part, if EDG get a lead, it kind of feels doomed. But even if EDG fall behind, they still make you fight for every single inch that you get, making it such a hard one to push through. Something to note, though, just before we went into the pause, is that we do have the Gale Force complete for Viper and the Imperial Mandate for the Nami. I talk about this endlessly, but this is kind of the point where you should be taking over the matchup, where like you can put your bot lane in mid, and then if anyone shows up to contest the mid wave, like if Light is trying to farm it up on the Zeri, you can like dash Gale Force in and then culling, and you can just one-shot pretty much anyone, any squishier champion. I mean, even some of the tankier ones with the extra damage afforded to you. And that's how you're kind of playing the Lucian Nami. It's not about the extended DPS team fights. It's about one-shotting people and playing for picks, playing for poke.
Yeah, which we've seen Viper do time and time again, right? If there's a great tidal wave for Meiko, we've seen that be the difference maker as well. And I think it's, again, so much is on the table in terms of win conditions, but in the end, it's a huge burden of execution for EDG. But that is what we expect from this squad. That is what we expect from these players, and especially with the form we've seen them in, right? You were talking earlier about it's feeling like another Worlds run here for EDG, and I think you have to laud each one of these players for coming through a pretty difficult season in summer, right? And spring, and now showing back up when the moment is nigh.
I mean, it is looking like EDG are fully in form. I feel like top esports EDG right now, for most people, are the 3 front runners to make it into Worlds. And the thing to mention is that EDG don't have many championship points because they had a pretty rough spring, which is like surprising when you think about it, considering they were so on form in last year. But yeah, rough spring has meant that they really need as many points as they can get, because even obviously the ideal is that you win summer and you just get the first seed, but that's not an easy task. There's not enough points available to EDG that they're going to be able to get the second seed, because second seed goes to the team who have the most championship points. They just auto qualify. That's unlikely to be EDG. They will have to fight through the regionals, and it still makes a difference. If you have more points, you'll be on the top side of the bracket, which means you have 2 chances to qualify. If you have less points, if you go out here, you will be in the bottom bracket, and you lose a single best of 5, you ain't going Worlds.
Yep, and that is what is on the line. As we get back into the game, we did see LNG pick up second Rift Herald here. So they'll be looking for that further on, at least in terms of trying to get that working. The first one, it ended up actually working out. Used under the tower, but that's when we had all those shenanigans up there. And now with Tarzan having reset, we're getting resets now from LvMao and Doinb. I want to see where that next step is. If they just try to get those resources more under Allah. Ooh, they are.
TP coming in. They want to dive.
They are just going to go full ham on this top side. Flandre, we're in some trouble here. Oh, the perfect execution just went away for Doinb. We'll see the Ornn used. Won't hit anybody. Just goes for the minions there. The tower very, very low. Scout is here to defend. And perfect execution. He does want it. He wants to get the damage down, but it's just to back LNG out of the fight.
Yeah, a lot of aggression coming out from LNG there. Commit a lot of resources to try and... I mean, obviously, Flandre kill would be great, but the focus was that tier 2. They aren't quite able to get it, and EDG Scout is quick to respond, and the team is as well. But this is the problem. You move all those resources to top to defend there, and it opens up a vulnerability mid lane. Tower picked up for LNG, and we said at the start of the game, right, EDG are the ones who need momentum. They have a lot of champions that kind of function best when they have a lead. LNG, the fact they are 2,000 gold up with a composition that is going to fare better the later the game goes, they feel really good about how things are going right now.
They are. They're sitting in the driver's seat. I can appreciate that one, but I think obviously it's about moving around the map. It's about the next objectives and the setup we've seen from EDG, right? They have now moved Viper out of the side lane. We'll get a lot more influence from the Viper-Meiko duo in a lot of these skirmishes, and that's where I'm looking to LNG to utilize the comp that they have. Utilize Doinb to try to find an in here in these big skirmishes, as Viper is always going to be looking for the aggression. He even gets the shield bow out of light here. Tarzan going right back in. JJ baits them all out with the clone, and Doinb will have his crown pop.
Yeah, this is light with a Lulu next to him under tower, and he still gets bursted out that heavily. That is kind of the concern, right? Light did everything right in his positioning.
Whoa.
And still it was nearly Viper having enough damage to take him down. But he does survive the play. Doinb just throws out a tidal wave. Think he just didn't really have a use for it. But we do finally see Ornn take that top lane tier 2. And this is the thorn in the side of EDG, is that side lane pressure. The 4-1, or if they want to lean into a 1-3-1, does favor LNG. We even have the Ravenous Hydra picked up by Arlis, so very much going to have a lot of pushing power with that, a lot of sustain. It's at the point where you can just hit the tower, and any damage Flandre does to you, you can heal up. He will never 100-0 you, and you can always get away.
And again, we were going into the draft saying there's some options for Allah in terms of how he wants to approach these. He can work with the side lane, but he can also get in and lock down the short range carries of EDG. And right now, obviously leaning into the side lane pressure, it is working, right? Do you see anybody that can respond to Allah as he gets further and further in these side lanes?
Not when he's on 2 items, I'll tell you that much, right? And the problem is, if you take a bad trade, he will just sustain up off the wave. Like, it's not enough to chunk him out. It does cause some issues, and EDG are moving resources down. The thing is, the fortunate thing is that Ale opened up on the bot side of the map. Doinb's top. So Dragon is spawning in 45. It's not too much of an issue for EDG to be here, and they're going to start trying to contest for vision in the area. It's really important EDG on the objective first, because they can set up vision, they can look for those big flank engages from Wukong, from Akali, but also the pick potential. If someone walks up, if LvMao tries to ward and Viper jumps on him, he will die. There is no ifs and buts about it.
That Ultra Shock Laser are doing serious work to Meiko. We did see the Rift Herald popped by Tarzan in the bottom lane. It was just so close to running out. Had to pop it in the jungle. So it'd be a delayed crash there if it even does get to crash at this point on the outer tower. But it's a nice little distraction for LNG to at least try to set up for this dragon.
Yeah, but I mean, it just looks like Scout isn't interested. We'll let it die to the tower. And now EDG posturing aggressively in the situation. But look at Ale. Ale is fishing for a flank angle.
Doinb has the Ornn as well. They have a lot of setup here for LNG to take the fight. Allah just going to go back to trying to farm it up, trying to force this side lane even further into the tower. This might be a moment for EDG to pounce. That Allah is not here. He has TP available if he wants to come influence the fight, but Scout going over the wall. The dragon is the focus here. Ornn comes across. It'll be by Doinb to get a couple members of EDG off kilter here. The dragon, about 2,500 health. EDG staying right in there. Scout right in there. Here comes the Flandre. Ornn coming through, but the dragon is the focus for JJ. He gets it. Now the front to back is going the way of EDG. We said it's all about execution. It's all about how you navigate these team fights. They get the dragon. They get out.
Yeah, Tarzan takes so much damage trying to step up, trying to get his hands on the dragon, trying to get the smite, and it's mistimed. It goes down at, I think, 47 health after his smite, and JJ is the one who secures it. So good smite from JJ. EDG don't overstep, though. They take the kill, they go mid, they get the tower there. They're still down in gold, but 2 dragons in pocket, and 2 pretty strong ones scaling into the late stage of the game. 9% armor and a Mar when you have an Ornn, and the Hextech Dragon, the ability haste and the attack speed. Pretty good. Now, Doinb does actually catch on a Meiko, but might look for more.
The flash coming out. Doinb getting very close to taking down Meiko there, but he also took a huge chunk of damage from Viper Meiko in that trade we didn't get to see. So very back and forth, but again, it just feels like this Viper Meiko Lucian Nami has been coming out clutch at the right moments.
Yeah, able to do so much burst, and Viper is such a threat. I do feel like a big spike is coming in. Flandre's just upgraded his own item. When the upgraded Gale Force comes in for Lucian, that's really something they want to leverage for pressure. But here, we see the initial own horn from Doinb. Doesn't really hit anyone. And that kind of gives EDG the advantage because they have their own. But look at Tarzan. Already half HP. He's just trying to stay on the front line and play for the dragon. Gets CC locked. And then here, it smites early. And it goes down to 9-4. Goes down to 47. And JJ sweeps it up. Just kind of unfortunate. I can't fault him because he probably expected some damage to come through. But the CC that came out from EDG did a fantastic job of just holding him back.
That's what when you hold somebody back that long, like seconds feel like hours. And like just sitting there vibing is JJ, but on the other side, Tarzan's like, I gotta get the smite. I'm not in range. I gotta get in there. And in all actuality, some of that momentum, some of that desperation might have played a role in that one. And I think JJ staying calm, EDG as a whole staying calm in that moment. I know we just keep getting pauses, and maybe that's throwing things off a little bit, but EDG, they found a way to stick in this game. And it's really incredible that it was literally from draft, just them saying, we are confident that you cannot hands check us. We're going to take the early style composition into the comfort that you're taking from our draft of game number 1, and we're still going to beat you.
But I still feel like there's something to be said for it, right? LNG done a fantastic job so far this game. And those 2 fierce dragons, it's not ideal that they've given over to EDG. Like when you think of the stats they offer, the gold kind of probably feels even as a result, right? Because of the extra armor and the extra attack speed, the extra ability haste. Across the board, it does kind of mitigate the goal difference with how strong dragons are at the moment, but still very much a scenario where LNG with the gold lead can feel a bit confident. As long as they don't let the soul go over, I think they should be pretty comfortable with this one. It is an ocean soul once again. A lot of bulky champions on each side, though, in this game does mean it has more value than we had in that game 1.
Indeed, indeed. We do have this pause going, though, for a little bit longer, and we'll obviously dive back into the game, but I didn't get to ask you before we went on to the cast. This series of questions here, Aux, I'm going to need you to be very authentic with me.
Okay.
Which Lord of the Rings movie is your... Oh, we don't get a chance to do it. Dang it. All right, well, I'll save your answers later on. I thought we had more time. But we're right back into the game, so I don't get to ask my Lord of the Rings question. And we do see, Warmonks just now picked up for Flandre. Some of that scaling coming online for EDG if they want it to some extent to those particular pieces.
Yeah, it's actually, like, one thing is that when you play in the side lane, what can often happen is, like, Ole's not going to be able to dive Flandre on the tower from full HP, so he'll, like, chip him down and use the sustain to get him low enough where Flandre has to either reset and he takes the tower, or Flandre is low enough to kill. With the Warmogs, it does make that a bit more difficult. Also, obviously, the amount of true damage that Ole has, armor, not the most useful. So just a lot of health is kind of the game plan here for this Ornn.
Yep, and we are getting the setup around mid lane. Some of those pauses maybe throwing things out of sync a little bit, but EDG, LNG trying to position around this. There's still 3 minutes for the next objective in terms of dragons. We do have Baron across the table here, but it's about moving through those side lanes. What Ala can do in this downtime to force the hand around the map of EDG, right? Doinb is in the top side lane. It is just trying to find a way in with this 1-3-1.
Yeah, and I think something that can be really powerful is once you have the push in a side lane convincingly, you rotate through the jungle, sweep out vision. If there's no vision, you can just go mid, right? And if EDG stay overextended, that's when you find those great flank angles. So EDG kind of have to play respectful. They are just on the back foot at the moment, but like I said, Flandre level 13, when he does hit level 14, expect him to probably give the upgrade to Viper. He has now got 3 items completed, beating everyone in that regard. Even Ole, who was mega fed, doesn't have 3 completed yet. So this Lucian is strong. This is the point where EDG really need to take firm control of the game. And the next dragon, it will be up when Baron is. If you win that dragon fight handily, you can turn that into a Baron, and that would be enough for EDG to push the pace of the game on. But if LNG start to answer back, that's where it gets scary, because 3 items for Zeri is painful, and they're only 1 away right now.
Yeah, exactly that. I just love that Viper is buying all in to that, you know, idea, the philosophy. He doesn't even need boots, because he's saying, if I'm in position to die, I need to fight my way out of it. Getting that 3rd item spike, getting that Lord Doms in the face of a tanky front line in Doinb, in Tarzan, in Allah. It is a good decision-making moment for EDG, but it's just a little piece to the win condition for them, and I'm still seeing a lot of strength in terms of that scaling, in terms of that map play from LNG, which night and day from game number 1, right? This is so much more closely contested for LNG, and we have a dragon coming up in just about a minute.
Yeah, so I want to see the setup for that, and I want to see EDG in particular be there first, getting control of the area so they can play for picks, play for flank angles. Ollie's just picked up a Sterak's. You know, initially he had all the damage in his build, right? All the split pushing power. Sterak's is such a good team fighting item because of the shield. It's obviously not the old Sterak's, which was broken. Yeah. But it does give him that extra survivability. If he wants to dive on a Viper, he's going to survive quite a bit longer. And just Light actually going for the Wit's End third, not the IE. Yeah. I'm not the biggest fan of that, I'm going to be honest. Obviously, on some defensive stats, but I think it delays your spike so long.
But also, I think an important factor here is the 3rd item spike for Viper, but also he's got on top of that 3rd item spike over Light, he also has the ornament on there on his Gale Force now. So there is a big gold discrepancy between the ADCs at this point. Alla was looking for a flank here, but I feel like EDG are fine as long as they're keeping together. Scout might get engaged on here, but the setup is definitely there from the mid lane priority of LNG.
Nala is causing issues now, moving into the jungle. Oh, he's been jumped on.
They flash right onto him with JJ, and the calling. It's not enough to burn. It's not enough. They're trying to get him with the Ornn horn. They do not hit him. He's over the wall here, but JJ will go right in, and they capitalize on the positioning mistake of LNG.
And even with 3 items from the Camille, level 15, got the Sterak's, wasn't enough. Walked on a ward, and JJ has the confidence to go for the engage. The burst from Viper is there. Wasn't a quick kill, but they do manage to cut down Ornn and will secure that 3rd dragon of the game.
Oh my goodness, I thought LNG might just start this one up, and they're trying to force EDG out of the pit. I will just put all the praise on JJ. We've seen him multiple times. The execution on the flash clone invisibility into the fight has been incredible, and he has just been so quick on the decision making of that combo.
Just a combo. Oh, but now LNG are actually heading over to the Baron. Ollie's up in a couple of seconds with TP. They want to force them over here. Flandre would have to TP probably about now when he has started channeling it. LNG feel ready to call them out on this. The bare minimum, they've traded TPs on this front.
We're still missing some ultis from EDG. Ornn is just about to come up. Cyclone is just about to come up, but everything is available, including the Ornn for Doinb. We'll see as both of them get called at the same time. Both of them get connected, but LNG, they're still in the pit here. They are a little bit split focus. That's a nice Glacial Prison from the side of LNG, and it is going to be secured by LNG. And after the fight, things are falling to pieces for EDG as they're trying to navigate this one. Scout is buying a lot of time, but Light is being so massive on this Zeri. They catch out Scout. He takes a couple extra shots. The perfect execution gets him out of there, but LNG are surging forward with the scaling at their back. They'll find a couple, they'll get the Baron, and now they're looking at mid lane.
The confidence to go for the Baron play, and they secure it. So now EDG on the back foot without their front line, really difficult for them to step up to anyone on LNG. A lot of shred damage coming through. Tower will be taken as well, and just like that, yes, EDG have 3 dragons, but a 4k gold lead for LNG. Really heads up play to go for that angle.
And that will be Wit's End completed there for Light. We're getting that 3rd item completed, and the strength for LNG is starting to show up.
Yeah, I mean, in this situation, you can see Tarzan's focus is the Baron because it's so low, but they're just kind of playing keep away with anyone who moves forward. JJ is the first, so he gets hit by the Ornn ultimate and gets chunked out by the Ultra Shock Laser. So he has to back off, and then Scout tries to move in, gets hit by the Sejuani ult. He has to back away. It's just not allowing anyone access to the pit. And because EDG was so focused on getting the pit, they're now chunked out. They're missing tools, they're missing mobility, and LNG pounce and start to chase them down.
And we're just seeing so much, at least coming from that little moment from LNG. You're getting, you know, full 3-item spikes coming through for multiple members. You're getting that stability that they drafted this composition for, where EDG had tested them in terms of letting them grab this composition, not going back to what was happening in game number 1. We'll see if Ala can make the difference here in the side lane. The Glacial Prison comes out. Oh my goodness. EDG are fully committing to this one, but Ala with a hook shot is looking to get out of there. He will not survive very long as Viper will get that kill. A lot of focus though as LNG are bashing in the base.
But I think EDG are fine with this because they kill Ala in the side lane. There's a big annoying split push threat. The rest of LNG have to back away, and the end result is you stop the Baron push. Oh, EDG might... I found no, they're gonna get away from that when they're okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit craziness back and forth. Both mid laners kind of testing their limits a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna say right on this Witsend point, I'm not a fan of the Witsend on light. Back when we saw like Titanic Hydra being the build for Zeri, back when it was like the on-hit build, what happened is when you ED and you know your shots fire through people, they would proc on-hit effects on each target. They nerfed that to stop that bruiser build. That's why, and you know, they buffed the crit aspects. On-hit effects are kind of bad. Well, no, they're not kind of bad. They're bad on Zeri because you fire your Q, like it only applies on-hit effects once, and you fire less Qs than a normal AD carry auto attack. So I'm not a fan of it. It's delaying your 3-item spike really heavily. So I think Light, not a fan of his itemization. And Ale, I'm not a fan of this getting caught out back-to-back sort of thing.
Yeah, you can't have that, right? We have set up Ala to be such an integral part to LNG, to pick apart EDG, to make them go into the side lanes, force this 1-3-1 composition. But if you eliminate that EDG, they have been able to pounce. They have been able to kind of make good. And I'm really, really honing in on Ala to navigate these next 10 minutes better, at least in those side lane catches, right? You've got to have the setup for LNG, even if we're saying they are much more favored going into the later parts of the game. It is still EDG, Aux.
Yeah, and right now Viper's 4 items. Look at the items he has. That is a lot of damage. Ale is one of the best people to deal with him. Yes, because his stopwatch has been, that could have been a great tool for getting on a Viper and surviving. But regardless, if you kill Viper, fights get so much easier for LNG. So that is kind of the game plan. And Ale is the best person to get on top of him. He doesn't have a defensive item. He doesn't have a way to get out of the Hextech ultimatum. No stopwatch picked up yet. And both teams posturing. This would be sold for EDG, but they would have to secure it.
And again, Viper is just living with the double-edged sword. Says, no boots for me. We are going full damage. That damage from the Ultra Shock Laser of Light going to do nice little work there as well. Doinb is now coming in with the flank here as EDG forced out. Apologies. That is a big tidal wave across from Meiko, but it's not enough. It is the scaling coming through. Scout on the back, though. He gets gunned down by Light. And LNG, they're doing it here. JJ, he's out of there. Nice little bubble from Meiko as well. Light is trying to have it. Light is trying to make it work. And Flandre, so tanky, will be eventually sandpapered down by LNG. They'll try and pick him up. Nice little dodging from Light, and Light is doing Zeri things. Flandre, you need to get out of there, but it's not going to be for long. Light is chasing them down. And LNG, they have found purchase on game 2.
They managed to take out Viper. Light even runs down JJ in that fight. It's only Meiko alive. 10 seconds on the Lucian. Do they try and end? I think they won't. I think they'll just go for the dragon. They don't want to risk it here. But double inhibs taken and denying the soul on the cards. They did what they needed to do. And actually, if you look at the inventory of Viper, look what he just bought, Mazel. I bet he wished he could have afforded that before that fight.
Absolutely. That stopwatch would have come in handy there, but it will be first dragon for LNG, denying the soul from EDG and taking a big fight win here. We'll see that fight right after.
And Viper is just overextended. Does have the cleanse for the ult from the Sejuani, but you're trapped on the slow field. You get ulted from Ala. And Meiko does some fantastic peel. Like, credit that Viper survives as long as he does. But he's, like, so low here. You're not surviving for long. And Light survives the initial attempt on his life by Scout, and then is able to just ramp up over the course of the fight. It's kind of tickling Flandre here. Not quite doing as much damage when you don't have the LTR, you don't have the IE. But it doesn't really matter when there's not the damage coming out from EDG in return. You can just stack up that ultimate and run them down.
Yeah, there's no stopping the Zeri train at that point. And honestly, good stuff from Light to step up in the moment, right? I think obviously against Viper Meiko, we've said so much that it is heavily in EDG's favor in the bottom lane. But Light and LvMao stepping up at the right moment is key.
And now they're looking to try and go for the Baron play again. Scout has TP. He's recalling to come back in. And EDG are trying to contest this one. TP bin. So if LNG back off now, they already got something.
Oh, Meiko gets half health from one Ultra Shock laser. EDG are forcing every fight because they feel like they have to. They feel like they need to try and get LNG off balance. Find a pick somewhere within those fights because as we've seen, the big team fights not going their way necessarily, and their base is in tatters at this point, something they have to watch out for. LNG might just end the game.
Yeah, LNG can push in. This forces EDG to recall and answer the waves, and Scout's TP is already down. So they actually send Viper and Meiko. Ideally, Flandre could have been sent to TP back in, but I just think they weren't sure he was going to be enough, and now Baron's is gone. There's no time, so very good use of those split push threats to force EDG back in their base. LNG get the Baron. 7k gold lead now. They're looking in a really good position in this game.
Yeah, I just think that looking at these next moments, it is up to LNG to close it out, right? Like to find those nails in the coffin for game 2 against EDG, and there's always that hope that Light hits a big Ultra Shock laser, Alla gets a big engage, but it could also go the other way around. Lightning crashes from Light. You got to look at the front to back. Tarzan buying so much time with that stopwatch. We'll see the Ornn horn from Flandre miss wide, and EDG tried something, but they didn't come away with much.
Yeah, I love how, like, Wukong all committed, culling, tidal wave, and then one Ultra Shock laser hits in return. You're like, yeah, even trade. That's all you need. LNG feeling confident, pushing in once more. Tarzan with the Warmogs will heal up. And EDG are trying to defend, but with both inhibitors down mid and top, they don't want to stall. They want to fight now to stop this push.
Viper is full items now. He has the GA. He is the hope that lies within EDG. And Viper, he's trying to make it happen. He tries to get LvMao. He does get the damage down on the line. Viper is single-handedly picking up EDG at this moment. That is a huge pickoff, but doesn't mean much in the end. A double kill for Scout. Alla is ending the game right now, and Doinb is coming right behind him. This could be a last little saving grace. LNG want to finish the game here. Doinb and Alla, they're focusing the Nexus, and they're too tanky. Doinb elates, and LNG tie up the series 1-1.
Viper pops off, finds both bot laners in that play. Fantastic from him. But the base is exposed, and they make, once again, a great call. The solo laners of LNG, you can see them there, laughing to each other. They managed to find the avenue, and I just think LNG had such great calls again and again and again. Whenever EDG were overgrouping, they're like, okay, Arle, Doinb, it's your time. Move in, apply the pressure, take the inhib, and here, just take the Nexus.
I love it. They're just so tanky. They just force the hand, and they say, like, we don't want something to come back for EDG. We saw Viper help get 2 kills for Scout. We don't want none of that. We just need to go for the end. And because of the crossing of T's, dotting of I's earlier on in the game, and especially that closing out of the inhibs, it made it all too easy and forced EDG's hand. So we've seen a very tough fought game 2 now from LNG to come out on top, where in game 1, EDG just smashed them. And I think, obviously, we have a series on our hands, but LNG, momentum is king for these guys. I feel like if you start feeling good, if you start feeling confident, LNG can take any series in the LPL. And I know that might just be my focus, my points, but I think it's so important to keep a side tangent thought on.
And I mean, I'm going to be real. EDG, they opted into this, right? They changed the draft. They won game 1 with Zeri, right? And then they opted into the aggressive bot lane, the Lucian Nami, which lost game 1, lost game 2. They chose this sort of draft where you're relying on having that early pressure, and they weren't able to make it work. I think LNG did a fantastic job of playing around the strong solo laners, and this is what we wanted for the team. Have these strong solo laners to set up Tarzan. And sure, like, you know, Arle may have ended the game 1-4-4, but the pressure in the side lane was such a problem for EDG.
Yeah, it didn't at all explain the strength that Alla put into this one. I think especially stepping up into the man, that, you know, he stepped in for on LNG when Flandre left. And to be able to pull out a series like this on the Camille, to have that focus that we set up in the beginning. You have multiple different routes you can go, but that split laning, that 1-3-1 that LNG used so masterfully against EDG, that is something that EDG have to be careful of moving forward now into the series.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem. And this is something that Ole is so fantastic at leveraging. It's why the Fiora is consistently being banned against him. You give him an advantageous matchup, he's going to be in a rough spot. And I think, you know, a lot of top laners will mitigate this by picking things like the Gnar. The Gnar, a top laner who you can blind him. He's able to lower the pressure of things like Camille, Fiora, because you can do well in lane. If you get him ahead, he'll hold up in side lane. Flandre hasn't played Gnar at all this split, right? Well, actually, no, sorry, he played it early this split. Hasn't played it at all in playoffs. It hasn't been something he's lent on massively. Did bring it out in game 1, but it's like been something they've had much lower prio on than other teams in comparison. So just the fact that he's not as willing to bring it out compared to other top laners makes me concerned, because I think it's a viable option. And yeah, game 1, obviously. Hasn't played it as much is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's where we're going to have to see, is he willing to kind of fall into that style? Because he came out on top when they kind of went fisticuffs saying, we're both big team fight ultis. Let's see who gets the better flanks, who gets the better influence. And now going into game 3, that will be oh so crucial. We'll see after we take a little break who comes up in 2-1 fashion in this best of 5.